Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mouthy Money podcast. Off air after a little bit of a hiatus, in which Chris has been my able stand-in full-time host. I'm back.
Welcome back,
Chris.
Ed. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's
I don't
good
know
to
how you
be
do it
back.
every week in the hot seat. It's hard work.
I know. Well, some people it just comes naturally too. So let's just leave it at that. No. So today we're going to do something a little bit softer and more experiential than what we typically spend a lot of time doing hard kind of big topics like pensions and investing and all that kind of good stuff. It's obviously really important, but it's summer, although out my window it is raining currently, but I guess that is the great British summer for us.
Checks out.
So we we are going to talk today about holidays, aren't we? And specifically, Chris, we're going to talk about your holiday and then a little bit about a holiday for me that didn't happen, and why some of these things matter. So, Chris, putting you on the spot now, what happened? What happened to your holiday, your recent
Yeah,
experience?
we can loosely call this holiday nightmares, I suppose. But let me take you, listeners, back to January of this year, where myself and my slightly frazzled wife, Tanya, who gets a lot of airplay on this, were sat around in the first week of January looking to book an all-inclusive holiday for ourselves and our two daughters. Um, we, to be honest, I was always thought I was the kind of person who's like, I'm never going to do all inclusive. I'm going to be getting my back on and walking around. But um, suddenly you realise the value of kids clubs and supervised pools and free booze. So we've done a couple the last few years. And this year we thought, right, we're going to look at doing something in Europe. Tan's fantastic at sort of looking for deals and all the rest of it, and found something through a holiday company that you all know called Jet2. First time we'd used them, looking at Corfu in Greece. So this is a bit of a present to ourselves. We do at the start of the year. And so we're looking to get somewhere nice, 5-star, and head off there. So after a bit of shopping around and a couple of days of prevaricating, booked it, forgot about it, sent the email off to HR, blocked out the dates, and waited. And it was only recently, about 3 weeks before, we started to notice that there was a bit of chatter online about the hotel that we booked. A Facebook group had popped up. I don't know about you, Ed, but when a Facebook group pops up, I do start to worry. And that worry was justified because it turns out that the hotel that we were staying at, which we didn't realise at the time of booking was still under construction, had these construction work had overrun, which is not entirely unsurprising, but it was ready and open. And there was a debate going on with people sharing pictures of grouting and their expectations of what the 5-star holiday should look like, showers and play areas and all the rest of it. So this anxiety started to build up before we went off as to what are we walking into. But contacted the Jet2 rep here, or at least Tanya did, and they assured us there was no complaints, everything was fine, everything's good. So boarded the plane, ended up arriving there, and then it quickly transpired over a period of about 24 hours that was not the case. There was, the hotel was pulling it together, but there were things like, boxes of rubbish on the beach, and at one point the lift got stuck and there were no signs for the toilets, and all these kind of good things, which on the face of it perhaps doesn't sound like too big a deal, and I don't want to sound like I'm too spoiled here, but as was pointed out to me, we booked this week because we wanted to be taken care of, and we paid a price commensurate to that, if you know what I mean. It's like, well, we'll pay a higher premium so that we are getting, we're not having to clean up after ourselves, we're not having to think about what's going on, we're not having to avoid boxes of rubbish on the beach and things like that. Anyway, after about 36 hours, well, before that, sorry, I should say, in the Facebook group, this debate had kicked off about people just rebooking and not going at all. Some people going over and then immediately demanding to be moved, and other people saying, I don't know what you're moaning about. So you got the full kind of gamut of humanity on there with what people were willing to accept and weren't willing to accept. But I think it was our room which swung it, which was, overlooking a generator which was very noisy, so we couldn't go out on the balcony. It was tiny. We've got a 10-month-old. She likes to crawl around. There was no room for her to crawl because it was just absolutely filled with our suitcases because the room was too small. And so Tanya took it upon herself to go down and speak to the rep and see if we can get ourselves moved. Initially, there was a sort of a little bit of placating going on, I think, or trying to sort of, some of the phrases used were like, well, they're doing their best, which, Ed, I don't know about you, that's none of my business. It's like, I'm
Sounds a
sure they
lot.
are. Yeah.
Sounds a lot like a PR response, doesn't it,
Well,
Chris?
maybe
We're
I'm not
doing
sure I
our
do that,
best.
but they try. They were, and the staff were great in terms of what they were trying to. There just weren't enough of them, and the place wasn't done. So they were trying to work around problems that fundamentally they couldn't fix.
It's
Or
like
people,
it's like every call center you ever call these days when when you get that automated response saying, sorry, we're extraordinarily busy at the moment. We're endeavoring to answer your call as quickly as possible. It's like, no, you're not.
yeah.
No, you're not. And then oftentimes it just goes straight through anyway.
Just
Sorry, continue.
get your retaliation in early. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did have a conversation with the rep on the ground who was dealing with a few people and made it very clear that we wanted to move. And eventually we did get moved after, on the third day. We ended up going to a very lovely resort, which fit all of our expectations and was absolutely fantastic. But that was sort of a good quarter to a third of our holiday that was spent just not quite relaxing well enough. And considering, what we spent, how much store we put by this, feels like it was, um, you know, money that or an investment that had been taken away from us a little bit. We work hard. We work hard for it all year to set that time aside. And the last thing you want to be doing is looking up your consumer rights, and what the situation is there, and be arguing with people to essentially get the service that you paid for. Um,
You do wonder why some people, I mean, you said you've never done an all-inclusive before. I've never done all-inclusive. I have friends though who swear by it. And makes me understand why people tend to always go back to the same place they know every year because they know what they're getting. There's a predictability to it, isn't there? And it's kind of like, I know the resort, I've been there before, I know what it's like, I know what the service is like, facilities, etc. Trying something new like that, and you can end up with this kind of chaotic situation, which is totally unacceptable. Obviously, it sounds like Jet2 did eventually fix the problem for you, but not after. It sounds like quite a lot of grief, right?
well, yeah, it was just having to be persistent, and we didn't want to be too knee jerk. The Facebook group was amazing because you got people sort of complaining about the types of hangers there are. So you're thinking, am I imagining this? You're getting kind of an insight into humanity. Does that matter? But then what does matter is that the beach isn't finished, or that there's no signs on the doors, or that the room's too small, or that there's a loud generator, and all of that isn't what we were led to believe the situation would be. So. Yeah, I think this is where I have done. So just to correct you, we have done all inclusive before. We had excellent experiences. So since our first daughter Erin arrived, we've done it with her, and so we've kind of got used to the formula a bit. And this just felt different from the off because of, the Facebook group and what was happening on there, and some of the pictures that were being posted. I mean, to give you one example, there's a child sort of splash area which we were led to believe would be fantastic, and actually, there was like concrete in it. So powdered concrete. So we were literally going to be dipping our baby into concrete, things like that. So just stuff that you can't turn a blind eye to. This is not us being fussy. This actually means that this is not, forget 5-star. You just can't do that. And they fixed it. They every time they came to a problem, they endeavored to fix it. But the point is, they shouldn't be fixing it on our dime. And this is the benefit of booking with a package provider like Jet2, in fairness, which is if you book it as part of a package holiday, as per the package travel and linked travel arrangement regulations of 2018, the tour operator or travel company is legally responsible. So if the hotel doesn't match the brochure or the itinerary, you have the right to a rectification, which is being moved to a comparable hotel, and you may also be entitled to compensation. So the first part of that, we absolutely did get moved to maybe in a slightly better hotel, all things considered in terms of their rate. But the compensation is an interesting piece. So I'm still waiting for some payments on some tourist tax to come back through to us, and there's been no real mention of that. But It's about how much you want to go into battle for this kind of stuff. But you're right. We work hard all year. We put money aside for this. It came out of our savings, stuff I could put towards pensions, investment, all that kind of good stuff, because we wanted to invest some time in rest and recuperation. And what you end up with is a good chunk of that large part of it. You're in admin mode, or you're clearing up after yourself, or you're trying to avoid the noise of a generator and things like that. So, it was a little bit of a Jet2 nightmare initially, but in fairness, the right outcome. We got to the right outcome in the end.
Do you think it's well? It's interesting, isn't it? Because Jet2 is becoming the advert has become a bit of a meme, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna play the music back. We might have to put it on TikTok though. Join the
Yes.
trend. I don't know if you've got any videos of the generator at all, Chris. You
I
might
wish
want to
I'd
share.
taken one now, actually. I should have documented the evidence. We didn't need to because everyone was complaining. So they were like, I'm sure it's true. Anyway, there we go.
I don't know. I mean, the memes are all very funny, aren't they? I don't think it's necessarily a Jet2 specific issue. But they do seem to become emblematic of that kind of, and a lot of, and I'm going to go philosophical on the memes here now, and I think there's a sense that these things that we pay for, a lot of the times, people perhaps feel like, and this is the sense I get from the memes, is why people poke fun at it, is they're not getting their money's worth. That
Yeah.
actually you kind of being sold this brilliant holiday for, like you say, potentially quite large amount of money, because these are not cheap, especially when you've got, several children, etc. You expect, we work harder and harder every year in order to just enjoy the same outcomes. And when it goes badly and it's disappointing, then it just becomes it becomes a meme. It has become a meme because people are just like, we're paying for this kind of grotty holiday that 10 years ago cost half as much and was just as good, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you're really onto something there, Ed. And I'm going to maybe reveal a bit more about my own character here, but oh well, the listeners need to know the truth eventually, don't they? We were on the way back. It was a sort of a late night flight, and Corfu airport's quite small. It's quite busy. There was a lot of there was a large queue. It was hot. It wasn't that well air conditioned. I was starting to get a little bit of a headache. There was a lot of stress. Two young kids, up past bedtime and all that kind of good stuff. And we got through where you sort of beat your boarding pass, and having had to fight our way to the front essentially because there wasn't enough space, and there was just a large staircase down, and we had a pram with us with our 10-month-old, and you're like, brilliant, this is great. So we now have to carry this down, and again, it's not a major undertaking, but on top of everything else, it just became a bit of a pain. Then we got onto the flight, and for some reason there was like this I presume it's protective, some kind of protective, I don't know what you'd call it, baggage thing, and I couldn't get the bloody pram into that. So I was just gradually getting more and more frustrated. And then I sat down just before takeoff. I thought, why has this wound me up so much, apart from the obvious annoyance? And it's exactly what you said. I'm being squeezed constantly. The experience is more expensive than it was 3 years ago. I've gone to a slightly less desirable location in terms of where I went before, and paid similar money. And actually what I'm ending up getting is a harder time for less amount of time there. And I know that's inflation, but that is bound somewhere in our muscle memory, or in the recesses of our memory, to make you think, I'm not happy about this. I'm annoyed. I'm angry, and
It
sorry, go on.
feels it feels emblematic of so many things that we all deal with now, where you pay the same, if not more, for something, and what you get is not as good. And actually, that entropy, that kind of decay of standards, and the inflation of everything. I think for me, it particularly hurts when you go abroad and go on holiday, because you're supposed to be enjoying yourself, and you're sitting there thinking, well, this is not as good as it should be, or it once was.
So
It's harder to take.
the other thing I saw, actually, so for other reasons, I was overseeing family in Ireland over the weekend, and the Coldplay meme, right? Everyone saw the Coldplay meme.
Oh God, I was waiting for you to mention that, Chris.
Less said about that, the better. I
And
suppose there's
I
been
just
enough
was
chat about
hoping that
that.
we'd be serenely immune from that, which everybody, even my wife, was asking me about that over text message of the weekend.
There we
She
go.
has no idea about memes, and it made it as far as her. So anyway, yeah.
So anyway, it's become. But I saw Ryanair's social media team, and in some ways, from a professional level, I'm like, fine, I like this. But it's back to this conversation we've just been having. It was, the handshake emoji. and it said Coldplay and Ryanair splitting up couples because
I
that they
saw
have
that.
to. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's funny, right? We're laughing, but
Yeah.
also we're in on the joke of having to pay more to sit next to our loved ones. It's just a bit of a strange position to be in. So me and my brother didn't pay the upgrade because we're brothers and we don't need to talk to each other every minute of every day. And it's now a flight, so we ended up sitting just across the road from each other, one seat in between, which felt a little bit, why haven't you put us together? But anyway, and it seems like, well, no, this is the thing, and we're not only going to do this, we're going to a knowing nod and a wink to know we've got a hand in your pocket here, and we're taking the piss, frankly. And it's back to that thing we were saying before about pissing in your pocket and telling you it's raining, or maybe they're not even doing that; they're just laughing at the fact that they're pissing in your pocket, which is kind of how it felt to me at the time. So, yeah, I think there is that sense of even getting through the departure gate with a Ryanair flight, making sure your bag's the right size, or you have to pay €60 on this, and having to buy bags online that are the right dimensions of something that they could change at any minute. It feels like you have to constantly pass a test to justify your slightly too small a seat on this
Yeah.
plane. And then it's selling to you constantly throughout: buy the scratch card, buy the meal, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. And again, I know that's probably good business and they've got the profits to show it, but in terms of the impact it has with on me as a customer, and me as somebody who's wanting to relax with these trips if you can, or got a lot on your mind if it's a personal trip for another reason, it does feel like it starts to grate quite majorly.
So one thing which I actually recently had experience with Ryanair as well, but slightly different. We were supposed to go on a trip to Dublin, but I was unfortunately unwell and we couldn't go. So fortunately, we have travel insurance, and I'll say to everybody at this point, go and get travel insurance as soon as you book anything to go anywhere, be that in England or anywhere, because you need it to protect yourself. Obviously, with companies like Jet2 and that kind of thing, there are some kind of inbuilt consumer protections there, but for insurance, you have to have it. So I had to start the process of claiming the costs of our trip back, which it's about 650 quid. Unfortunately, the excess on our policy is 150 quid. 100, this I hadn't appreciated. The excess on the policy is different depending on what's happened to you, which
Oh, right.
strikes me as strange. Because it was my problem because I was unwell, the excess is higher, I guess, because they want you to make the claim in good faith and not just pretend you were sick. That's what excess is. People don't realize, but excess is about you paying a little bit towards the claim in good faith that you're making it honestly, basically. So the excess unfortunately is £150 on the claim. So I'm already already a fair bit out of pocket from the trip, being unable to take a trip. Anyway, to bring me to Ryanair. Obviously, you have to get receipts of everything. You have to prove that you made payments. So I had to screenshot all my bank transactions that were paying for everything for the trip and all this kind of stuff. There's quite a lot of paperwork. It's quite annoying. Ryanair, we were flying with Ryanair from Bristol, and we had to get a letter from Ryanair to say that we hadn't taken the flight, that we didn't use the flights. Um, and you know what's amazing, Chris? They do that for you for free. They give you the letter, and you get it so quickly because they are desperate to ensure that they don't have to give you a refund.
They really, there you
They're
go.
they're very good about Ryanair, very good about providing an insurance
So
letter.
a letter is for free, but I recently, due to there was some personal circumstances, I was over in Ireland again, and very stressful ones, and I forgot to check in the 2 hour before the 2 hours. I think I did it 1 hour 50 before. Not allowed to do that. Went in, queued up at what looked like sort of the edge of the baggage handling area to get printed out this old school boarding card, and that cost me €60, Ed. So for you to get a full letter for free, there you go.
Unbelievable. Well,
Oh.
this is it. This is another interesting kind of rabbit hole we can go down on flight costs, which is the whole reason why we end up getting, well, the Americans call it being nickeled and dimed. I don't know if there's an equivalent expression in British. Um, Basically, and this it all comes down to the way in which we buy flights, which is when you want to go on holiday somewhere, the first thing you do is Google, flights to Mallorca or flights to Madrid or Paris or wherever it might be you want to go. And the airlines, and this used to be just short haul, but it's now increasingly also um, an issue for long haul flights, and it's something that is replicated in things like concert tickets and that kind of thing. It's when basically it's headline pricing. So what they will do is they will say, oh, you could get a flight to Madrid for £50 each, and that's what it says on the comparison on Skyscanner, on Kayak, and that kind of thing. They're desperate to make those headline prices as low as possible so that they look like the cheapest option. And then by the time you've gone through the process and you've paid for a bag, paid for another bag, because the expectation that you would take a backpack that could fit under the seat in front of you or whatever is just ludicrous, and has spawned its own industry of companies that design bags that maximize the amount of space you can fit on. Anyway, basically, they all these little charges. By the time you've ended up having to pay them all, that is the real cost of the flight. And actually, the reason why they do all the charging and why it even happens and all the little bits add-ons that they add on is because your flight does not cost 50 quid. It costs £160, and they have to make up the difference by charging you all those little bits and pieces in order to make sure that their flight operation is commercially viable. So essentially they are just putting fake prices on the search engines to get you on their website, and then they just slowly try and extract all the rest of the cash from you. Obviously people are really savvy to this now, as I say, which they get these bags that fit under the seats and all that kind of stuff to try and get around the charges. I've also, you see mad stuff like people will take a neck pillow, like one of those foam neck pillows or blow up neck pillows or whatever, and take the foam out and fill it with clothes. They just put it around the neck.
That feels a little bit over the top to me, to be honest. I'm not sure I could want to do
But
that.
these are all,
Yeah,
these are
tricks of
things
the trade.
things that people now do in order to get around the charges. And actually there are regulators in Europe, and I think potentially the UK as well, that are looking at this kind of headline pricing because it's become a major issue. But
So I did a campaign for this with a client a
yeah,
long time ago, and we called that feeling that you get from not getting that headline price FROMO. So frustration of missing out. And it's interesting what it does. Listen, brands like Ryanair are absolutely flying because they've created a solution that goes to those pain points and kind of makes it work for people, and people understand what they're getting into. But actually, I wonder what the long-term impact of that is. So, you know, it's very convenient for me, and it works for me, and it goes from the airports I want to go, and I can travel light, and therefore I know the thing. But even booking the flights on the site, I think that the journey is intentionally clunky at points. It doesn't flow logically. So the way you need to click to make sure that you are bringing a small bag and not adding another bag to it is slightly different on the next page than the other one. You're thinking that surely by design at this point. This isn't, and again, that maybe just be my experience of it, but there is this sense that you're trying to trip me up the entire way through. And
I think
that brings its own resentment or its own issue. And particularly, as we say, we work hard for our money, we build up our wealth, and when you're going on these holidays, you want to be able to kind of relax, because you spend a lot of time worrying about these things day in, day out. As it is, you don't want to have to, at the point of booking maybe, but even when at the gate now, when you're leaving, people are scrutinizing whether your bag is 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters too big. It's just constant feeling that someone's trying to put their hand in your pocket and make your holiday more expensive.
I think it's worth at this point. I mean, we've all kind of, these are probably experiences that everybody's had at some point or another. We all go through it. And that sense of injustice that you have from, struggling with, to get what you think you paid for on a holiday. And I think it's important for us to kind of bring back the wider point on this, because we don't, on Mouthy Money, we don't spend lots of time talking about consumer issues like this. But I think for me, it comes back to that wider point of, well, we work hard and we save and we figure out ways to pay for these kind of, small rewards. And actually, now I say that, there's a funny thing where people call holidays mini retirements, as if they're not just holidays. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Is that a Gary Neville thing?
Yeah, it was a Gary Neville thing. That was
Yeah.
it. He was like, yeah, I've figured out this thing where you just take 2 weeks off, and I call it a mini retirement. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's
Gary, you're going on holiday, Gary.
The latest of one of his weird terminology. But anyway, there we go. I won't.
Anyway, we're moving on from that. We want to take these little mini retirements on the way to the big retirement, and we work hard and we sacrifice in order to be able to do that. When that gets taken away from you, it just feels a little like the world is a little bit worse for it. Your world is a little bit worse for it, especially when it's kind of your money. And it's not like your car's broken down or you need to get new tires or something. These are things that just happen in life that you have to kind of suck up and get on with. You expect to pay for a holiday and then get something good out of it. And when it's bad, it hurts. It's special, really, for me, I find it, that it is an unpleasant feeling having to go through that. I think my wider point here is that you we as consumers, as people, and I hate using the word consumers because we're just people, we're not consumers, we're not economic units. We need to stand up for ourselves with these kind of companies. And obviously there are lots of companies out there that are fantastic, and there's lots of companies out there that you pay your money, you get your experience, it's fine and it's good. But there is, that sense that you just don't quite get what you want out of something. And as I don't know if it's a Brit thing or if it's people in general in the world, we tend to just kind of often just put up with it and just take it because I don't want to cause a fuss or whatever.
Well, it's stressful. A fuss is stressful, Ed, and the whole point of
Yeah,
these things is it's stress relieving. So I can understand that. But I have limits,
yeah,
and so at a certain point, you're like, no, this just needs to be fixed. And the recent example I had in Corfu is that. And in fairness, like I said, it took a little time, it took a little bit of battling, but not a huge amount. And then eventually we ended up somewhere great. So it was worth it. You did get the payoff. The other thing I would say is your point about insurance. Like I take out, annual insurance um, for my wife and two kids every single year. And it's not that expensive. And it gives you that additional kind of peace of mind that some of these large ticket items like flights or hotels that you might be booking are potentially covered or are covered in the event of something going wrong. So, we're protecting our wealth and spending our wealth. I think, travel insurance has come into its own a couple of times, I think, for me. And it sounds like it has for you.
well, we'll perhaps come back to that as a topic because my claim hasn't paid
We'll
out yet.
see.
But
Hopefully it
I'm
will.
now
Touch wood.
I'm increasingly experienced at insurance claims at the moment. Unfortunately, I mean, years ago I had to make one because our flat that we lived in flooded, and that actually turned out to be brilliant in the end. We actually, if anything, came out financially ahead because of the claim, which was handled really well, actually. And then recently had to claim on something to do with vet bills. Again, was quite a lot of money, and actually that was pretty great as well. So my experience with insurance companies, I know insurance companies catch a lot of flack because people seem to think, well, they'll do anything to get out of paying a claim, but actually, I think it's perhaps unfair. I think you have to provide the right insurance, the right evidence for what's happened to you, not take the piss, frankly. And I think a lot of insurers will pay out because as long as you're being genuine about the claim and what you've lost, it's good. It's the system works kind of thing. So, yeah, everybody make sure they've got insurance and just make sure you understand that insurance as well and what the implications of it are because they do cover things and they don't cover things. There are things that are quite clearly not covered, and also covered in different ways. So yeah, but again for the kind of long term view of it. You want your money to work hard and make sure that it helps you enjoy things that you've earned in life. So look after it and make sure that you spend it wisely. I think is my takeaway.
Amen.
But it sounds like in the end it was a good result, for you guys. So
Yeah.
happy about
Yeah,
that.
no, it was, and where we got moved to was great, and we had a lovely time. I even managed to develop a bit of a tan for me. I know it doesn't look like it, listeners, but this is me looking quite bronzed. So I did come back relaxed in the end, but bit of a false start, but we got there in the end.
Brilliant. I think that about wraps us up. We've got obviously it's summertime now. Glorious British summer, as I mentioned at the start. We've got tons of really good stuff coming up at the moment. We've got things about potentially about Bitcoin, more things around stuff like housing market, lots of pensions news happening at the moment as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about. All part of the rich tapestry of the Mouthy Money podcast, right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's loads coming down the line, and there's some big things happening in the world of advice and targeted support and stuff like that. We'll talk to you about soon as well, listeners. But
Yeah,
Rachel Reeves, you might have seen us talking about the lead reforms and all that kind of good stuff around investment and around mortgages.
yeah.
So there's lots to unpick now that will help guide you through.
think we might do a little bit of an update podcast on that because big stuff coming out this morning as well. But yeah, all good. Thank you everybody for listening. Chris, thank you for sharing your story today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Ed.
And as ever, do give us a follow. We'll speak to you again very soon. Thank you and goodbye. Thank you for tuning into the Mouthy Money podcast. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on all our content. Follow us for more on your preferred podcasting channel, including Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Stay in touch by following our social channels on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And don't forget to subscribe to the Mouthy Money newsletter on mouthymoney.co.uk. The Mouthy Money podcast is produced for general informational purposes only. It should not be construed as investment, legal, tax, or other forms of financial advice. If in any doubt about the themes expressed, consider consulting with a regulated financial professional for your own personal situation. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Investments can go down as well as up, and you may get back less than you started with. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. For more information, visit fca.org.uk/investsmart for more. Thank you.